Hey, thanks for watching Mondays with Mike. I appreciate you checking out the link. I hope they're helping you become all that God's created you to be. Talking about being who God's created you to be versus who you desire to be, I want to talk about Lance Armstrong. I read this morning that he was stripped of the 7 Tour de France titles that he won because of overwhelming evidence that he ran the most sophisticated doping or the most sophisticated cheating scheme in the history of sports, according to this article. And I want to go back 12 years to a book that Lance wrote in 2000. It's not about my bike, it's my journey back to life. And on page 113 of that book, Lance wrote this: I wished hard, but I didn't pray. I had developed a certain distrust of organized religion growing up, but I felt I had a capacity to be a spiritual person and to hold some fervent beliefs. So far, so good. Quite simply, I believed I had the responsibility to be a good person, and that meant fair, honest, hardworking, and honorable. So far, so good. And if I did that, he said, if I was good to my family, true to my friends, and if I gave back to my community or to some cause, if I wasn't a liar, a cheat, or a thief, then I believed that that should be enough. At the end of the day, if there was indeed some body, capital B, or presence standing there to judge me, I hoped I would be judged on whether I had lived a true life, not on whether I believed a certain book, I think he's referring to the Bible, or whether I had been baptized. He goes on and says this: if there was indeed a God at the end of my days, I hoped he didn't say, but you were never a Christian, so you're going the other way from heaven. If so, Lance says, I was going to reply, you know what, you're right. Fine. And evidently, as he's cast into hell, snub his nose at the omnipotent creator of the universe. Now, I read that because I want to share some universal principles, some universal laws that God uses to rule and govern the universe. Some of them are physical, gravity, second law of thermodynamics, things of that nature. And they're set laws that God keeps things in order with. Just as real as those are some spiritual laws that God keeps things in order with. One of those universal spiritual laws is the law of sowing and reaping. And he uses farming to illustrate that law. He says when a farmer plants a certain crop, he does not expect to reap the fruit of a different crop. He knows that if he plants this seed, that's the seed he's going to reap. And he says if you sow unrighteousness, you're going to reap unrighteousness. If you sow righteousness, then you're going to reap righteousness. And I say that to say those universal spiritual laws are just as real as the physical ones. And if indeed Lance was cheating, I'm not saying he was or he wasn't, but if he was cheating and doping, then what's happened today with the stripping of these titles is just this universal law in action, the law of reaping what you've sown. Now, the cool thing about God is he's the only one that can circumvent these laws. Jesus walked on water. He broke the law of gravity. So God, for his own glory at times, circumvents these laws, and because he's above them, he's other than these laws, he's outside of them. And so as he desires for his own glory, he can contradict those laws, if you want to call it that, in the physical realm and in the spiritual realm. And when a man repents, when a man comes to God and says, you know what, I blew it, then God is a gracious God and extends forgiveness and redemption. And so when we do some wrong things that result in wrong actions, we can still go to God, even though there's this universal law of reaping and so on. We can still go to him and say, God, I blew it. Would you forgive me? And he would. There may still be some long-term consequences, but they're far less severe because we've gone to a gracious and loving God. And here's what I want to end with. Lance became what he wanted to be, not what God put him here to be. And maybe by the end of the day, he'll get that. But what about you? Are you too busy pursuing what you've created yourself to be, that you've ignored what God created you to be? Because at the end of the day, when we do stand before that omnipotent creator, that's all that's really going to matter, that we fulfilled the purpose that he put us here for, not our own designed purpose. Thanks for watching Mondays with Mike. I'll see you next week.